Hello, I'm Ross Stagnitti with Canal Town Commentary, series of Canastota stories to be archived in the Education Center on Canal Street. Today is March 23rd, 2016, and I'm in the office building of the Village of Canastota and the town of Lenox with Joyce Gustin. Joyce, I want to thank you for accepting my interview invitation. Very good. And thanks again to Ellen and Mark Dunbar, our videographers. We're basically in the courtroom right now, and Joyce is probably wondering if I'm going to interrogate her, but this is an interview, and Joyce has many stories to tell, and we're going to start right now. Joyce, I'm going to ask you, first of all, how many hours have you spent in this building over the years?
I have no idea.
How many years?
Let's see, I retired in '88, so I want to say I had probably 8-9 years here in this building.
In this building.
Yep.
But you were also in the
The
previous municipal building.
Yeah, I started in there in 1963
Okay. So that's
until we moved over here, because I had 24 and a half years with the village.
And I thought that you were retired completely, but apparently you're still in the government business, because I think it was last week I came over to vote, and you're an election inspector.
Yes, I am.
And later on we'll get into yet another job that you have in the town of Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Before we talk about Joyce Gustin, government official, let's go back to July 21st, 1932. Did I get that date right?
Mm-hmm.
And the arrival of Joyce Keville. Joyce, where were you born, and where did you reside initially?
I was born at the Lenox Memorial Hospital, the old one. My mother had complications, because back then you didn't go to the hospital to have your babies, you had them at home. But my mother had complications, and they made her come to the hospital. And we lived on the farm at the corner of Gee Road and New Boston Street when I was born.
And the hospital would be where Kasab's dental office is now, for those that are not familiar, on the corner of Main and Center Street.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier to me that near your grandparents' farmhouse there was a one-room school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was up on top of the hill on New Boston Street. It was a one-room school, and it taught between 1st and 6th grade. And Mrs. Devine was the teacher. And we were all separated, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Maybe there was only 1 or 2 of us in each grade, but that's what we did.
Mrs. Devine, would that be the Devine family that
Yes.
did the dairy farming along that?
On New Boston Street.
On New Boston
Yes.
Street, yeah. Tell us a little bit about your parents, their names, and what your folks did for a
My
living.
mother was Diana Miller Keville. She was born in Churubusco, New York. My grandparents came here to run a farm for Lucy Tibbetts, Lucy Sullivan, Dr. Sullivan's wife,
sure.
the family. And in fact, she could not speak English when she came. They all spoke French Canadian. So she had to learn to speak English when she got here. But my grandfather was the oldest of 13 children. So as his brothers became 18, they came here. They'd work for my grandfather, find other jobs, got married, whatever. So the whole clan at one time or another, so she considered all her uncles almost like her brothers. And she was an only child. And my father was born in the town of Sullivan. My grandparents were Anna and Howard Keville, his parents. He had 3 brothers, 3 sisters, and one was his twin. My father was a twin.
Your dad's name?
Jesse.
And what did he do for a living?
He was a carpenter.
Okay.
He worked for Howard Whitmire Construction. And he also worked for my Uncle Slim as a truck driver. And he also worked on the farm, which he hated with a passion.
But I discovered a few minutes ago that your dad may have been involved in the construction of the house I lived in.
Yes.
On West Lewis Street, the
Yes.
Denwood Terrace area, Den for Denhays, and Witt for Whitmire.
Yep.
So
They also built a lot of the homes up on Eagle Village, up in Manlius.
Sure.
As you go up 173.
Right.
They built a lot of those homes.
very good.
I also did the ones in Chittenango.
Okay. You mentioned your mom's maiden name was Miller, and I think you said she would be related to Farrell and Cliff Miller.
Yes, in fact, they would be her cousins,
Okay.
because there was, of the 13 children, there was 10 boys and 3 girls.
Now, how about your nuclear family? Any siblings, brothers, sisters?
My immediate family?
Right.
Just my brother Gary, who was passed away about 7 years ago.
Okay.
We were 10 years difference in age.
So your grandparents they had a 13-member family, and
Yeah, and as I say, my mother was an only child, and it was just my brother and I.
now the 2 Kiville names I remember, other than yours, would be nicknames. I remember a Slim Kiville and a Red Kiville. Tell us a little bit about.
Slim Kiville was Clarence Kiville Sr.
Okay.
He's the oldest of my grandparents' children. And Red, as you call him here, was Clarence Kiville Jr., which was my cousin. And we were very close. He was born July 8th, 13th, and I was born July 21st.
Same graduating class. I've
Same
been
year.
looking through your book.
He was born the 13th of July, and I was born the 21st.
And I remember people talking about him as quite a football player.
Yes. From Canastota, he went to Aquinas for 2 years
In Rochester?
in Rochester. He didn't have all the subjects he needed to get into college. So
Prep
Father
school.
Riley, do you remember Father Riley
Yes,
at all?
I remember the name.
Well, my uncle went to him and said, he needs to go to a prep school for a couple of years. What do you suggest? He got him into Aquinas. So yeah, that's where he really shined in football.
Mhm.
And from there he went to the University of Richmond,
Oh,
and he shined there in his football years too.
very nice. You mentioned an uncle with a dairy route. Who would
Uncle
that
Wesley,
be?
that would be my father's brother.
What do you remember about his
Well,
dairy route?
during the summer I used to spend time with them, and he'd let me go on his milk route. You know, where the truck would pick up the cans of milk from the farmers and
Right.
take her to the dairy, and then we'd come back.
Mhm.
I did that every summer for probably about 4 years.
My wife used to do that with Don Schuler.
Yep.
I guess he used to work for Queensboro, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the girls would go along
Yeah. Mhm.
for a little ride. Among your other relatives, you mentioned a cousin by the name of Michael. Could you
Michael.
tell us a little bit about your cousin?
Michael is the son of my father's youngest brother,
Mhm.
who is still alive at 95, and his wife had just turned 90.
Wow.
But Michael graduated from Chittenango High School,
Mhm.
and he went to Annapolis. And then he served his 6 years in the Navy, and I guess really decided that military wasn't exactly what he wanted to do. He had his family. So he worked for Texas Instrument and went to theological school out in Texas.
Mhm.
And he now has his own non-denominational church at Crossroads Community Church in North Chittenango.
Oh, wow.
In fact, his son just won the position of mayor of Chittenango, young Michael.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned your grandparents on your dad's side. You remember them celebrating quite an anniversary.
They lived to celebrate their 76th.
Wow.
And he got ill and passed away.
76.
Yeah.
Wow.
He died in 1977.
During your earlier years, you lived upstairs from your grandparents,
On
the
the farm.
farmhouse near
Mhm.
Gee and New Boston Road. And then in 1939, you were 7 years old, I
Mhm.
believe. You mentioned moving to the village of
Yep.
Canastota.
Yep.
Now, can you tell us about that
Well,
experience?
Whereas the parking lot in Dunn's Bakery is now,
Mhm.
was downstairs was 2 businesses. All I can remember is one was a pool hall, as we call it back
Mhm.
then, and another one. And then the second floor was apartments, and the third floor was apartments. And Uncle Slim and my Aunt Vi and Red had moved up to the village. They were on the second floor, and my folks decided it was time to, he was driving for Uncle Slim, and so we were on the third floor. But I can't say we call it an apartment because it was just one huge room. It was a kitchen It was a living room, it was a bedroom, one great big room on
So
the
from
third
the
floor.
bedroom, you could see the kitchen from the
Oh, yeah.
living
There,
room.
there was no dividing area. We
Mhm.
were one great big happy family.
Now, how about the bathroom facility? Was that in the one big open
You
area?
shared that
Shared that with whom?
with everybody else on the third floor.
All the residents of the third
Mm-hmm.
floor had one common bathroom.
Yes.
Far cry from today. I think
Yes.
over at Stoneley, everyone has their own private bathroom,
Yep.
and most homes today are 2.5 baths.
Not today.
A little different.
But
So
it's-
this is where you mentioned Dunn's Bakery parking lot. For those that aren't familiar, that'd be the corner of Center Street and Peterborough Street. I do remember that building. In fact, on the ground floor there was a post that was identical to the one across the street at Wexler's. It had mirrors on it, I think, and at one time there was a coffee shop on the bottom floor.
Could very well be.
that would have been in
All
the
I remember is
70s
the
maybe.
fact there was a pool hall
Right,
down
but
there
that building's
downstairs.
gone now.
Yep.
While you were living there, your parents had several warnings. One was about the fire alarm. What can you tell us about the fire
Well,
alarm and your experience downtown?
The fire alarm system, if that was on the corner, that number was 33. That meant a downtown fire.
Right.
So my mother and father always said to me, if that rings, especially during the middle of the night, just grab what you got on and get out, because we didn't know where the fire was, and get downstairs. So this one particular night, it rang 3-3. And my father was a fireman who had joined the fire department, so he took off for the fire. And Mom says, we better go check out where this fire is. So downstairs we went. And there was, the shoe store was burning, Saul Fines, down by which is now Key Bank, and
Oh, right.
where Emmy's store was,
Right.
all in there. And sure enough, that building was ablaze.
Was that the IGA too at one time?
Yeah,
in that,
IGA.
in that block?
IGA is burned, Saul Fines.
Wow, wow. The other warning was with regard to the railroad.
Yes, because the railroad had a gateman and the crossing guards come down, and I was not allowed to go up to their point without somebody with me.
So for younger folks, we have to explain that the railroad at that time was, the tracks were on ground level.
Ground level, and you had a gatekeeper who cranked the bars down to
Right.
stop the vehicles.
And the tracks weren't elevated until I think somewhere in the 60s.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
going
it
to
was
guess
all
the
of that.
early to mid
Yeah.
60s. And there was a passenger train depot station in Canastota, and you could literally travel anywhere in the country from little old Canastota. As a kid, I remember going to Syracuse. It was like 35 cents one-way fare or whatever. Do you remember any vehicle or pedestrian accidents?
One particular one, we had one lady, an elderly lady, who was always very quick to do things, and she couldn't wait for the gates to come down and the train come, and she was killed.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of scared everybody.
Yeah, sure. Wow. How many years were you living downtown in that apartment on Main or Peterborough?
Maybe 2-3
Center?
years before
2 or
we
3
moved over to
And then where'd you go?
Center Street,
To Center Street.
West Center Street. we lived-
Where on West Center?
There's 3 duplexes on the same side as Dr. Sullivan's prime. Okay, we were the last one. The
Okay.
other half of the house, it was duplex type. Clifford and Dorothy Carpenter
Oh,
lived
okay.
there with their sons, Richard and Roger,
Right.
and Mom and Dad and I, and then my brother was born while we lived there.
Okay. So that was right across from the public library. Those.
Well, farther down where there was some other house, there was 3 houses
Mhm.
on that same side as the library.
Okay. Okay.
Lindley's and Van Dusen's, and I forgot who else was another one that lived there.
You mentioned the Carpenters.
Yes,
Were they close family friends?
yes, yes, they got to be,
Mhm.
because Mr. Carpenter, Clifford was also a carpenter by trade, had his own
That's
business.
appropriate.
And Dorothy was a nurse at the hospital,
Mhm.
and I was just old enough I could babysit with the boys.
So you were Roger and Dick Carpenter's babysitter.
And I remind him of it all the
Ah.
time.
I'll have to mention it to Roger the next time I see him. Your next move after leaving West Center, you went where next?
To Boston Street.
Okay. Which house would that be?
That would be where Ron Cream lives now.
Okay. Ron Cream's son is mentioned on ESPN this time of the year because he's they call him the bracketologist for the women's basketball tournaments. They always mention Charlie Cream on television. So you were on New Boston Street, and then the Keville home I remember growing up was on Lamb Ave. So your parents at some point moved to Lamb Ave.
But that's when they finally bought a house. They
Okay.
rented all these years, and then they
All right.
bought this house.
All right. Do you remember how old you were when you moved to Lamb?
I want to say 13,
13.
because I used to walk to school to Chapel Street, so I had to be 13.
So I'm going to guess you've got to rank as the mayor of Lamb Ave. I can't believe anybody has lived on Lamb Ave longer than you have.
No, I am. I'm the longest.
Dick Clark would probably he would want to be considered the mayor of Lamb Ave.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure he would.
But he came later. So that was the first place that your parents purchased. Did they go to the bank for a loan, or did they saved up money?
No, they went to Mr. Guy Clark.
Guy Clark, okay. The
That
gas
would-
station Guy Clark?
Yep.
Okay.
That would be Dick and Donnie Clark's father.
Okay, and eventually that business became a fuel company and eventually was sold to Nice and Easy.
Yep.
So
Clark,
that was
Clark and Callan.
Right.
Callan and Clark.
Right.
Yep. Beside
I
the
remember as a
station.
kid going
Yep.
up there.
Yep.
The gas station.
Yep.
Let's take a look at your school years. Did you start with kindergarten or first grade?
First grade.
No kindergarten at
No
that time.
kindergarten back then.
And give us a rundown on some of the school buildings that you were a student in.
Well, I went from Spencer Street when I first come to school, and I had Miss Lehner for a teacher. And then I spent 1 year at Southside School because of living on Center Street. And then I went to Chapel Street School, and from there to the old high school on Peterborough Street.
Now, when you say the Southside School, that's the old Southside School that doesn't exist any longer.
That's right, where Mike Paretta's home.
Right, corner of Rasbeck and Prospect.
Mhm.
Okay. The Spencer Street School is where the municipal swimming pool is today.
Well,
Pretty
there was a
much.
tunnel between Chapel Street and Spencer Street
Right.
School.
Right.
So, whether it was all one building or what, but when Chapel Street School burnt,
Right.
I was in my first year of high school.
So Spencer Street was an elementary. Chapel
Yes.
had become kind of a middle school.
What we
or-
consider middle
or
school
junior
now.
high, yeah. And then, of course, the Peterborough Street building served as the high school from the 20s until I graduated in 65. It's now an elementary school. So you were in the Peterborough building from, let me get this right now, September of 1946 until you graduated in June of 1950. And as always, we found a yearbook. And let's see, we have to find Joyce Keville. She's somewhere. Oh, there she
There's
is.
my cousin Red.
Oh, there's, yeah, okay, there's,
There I am.
all right, I don't know if we can, you want to get that now? On that page would be Joyce Keville and her cousin Clarence Red Keville. And this is the 1952. Name hasn't changed over the years. In this yearbook, noticed a few other names. Let's see. A classmate of yours who became a kind of a clerk colleague, right? That would be, I got to find the right picture here. Carolyn Barris,
Yes.
better known as
Nina
Nina
Yes.
Maserati.
Yep.
Okay.
was a classmate.
So, class of 1950, and she served as a clerk in this building. Also on that page, I'll leave it right there, there is a gal by the name of Phyllis Aquino. And I believe she married Mr. Manfred,
Yes.
and her son is the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And I wanted to bring that up because yesterday I'm watching ESPN, and Phyllis Aquino, Manfred's son, is sitting in the same box with President Obama and the president of Cuba, Raul Castro, watching a baseball game. It was a pretty historic moment, and there was there was a Canastota connection to that game that was played yesterday. Also in the yearbook, I just want to mention a couple of things. You're referenced as a quote unquote friend to all. That's quite a compliment. It's very nice,
Yes.
and I think that holds true today in this community. Also in the class will, I noticed that you gave the right to a personal chauffeur to Dolores Basilio, who was Carmen Basilio's sister.
Yes.
What was that all about?
Well, because I was going with my future husband at the time, and he worked locally, and he would come and pick me up at school, take me home for lunch. He'd go home and have lunch with his mom and come back and pick me up and take me back to class.
Yeah.
So Dodo was going with Joe Mazzacchio,
Right.
so I left her that.
So-
that Joe would come and pick her up, and because she was in class of
Oh,
51.
Okay, okay.
So that he would come and pick her up and drop her off, because he
And-
worked locally.
Both couples eventually married.
Yes, we did.
Very nice.
Yes, we did.
I'm going to throw out some names that I'm familiar with from my high school years that were in the yearbook, and just give us a quick remembrance of Rita Mackey.
Tough teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Tough teacher. She was rough on the boys.
I-
Really.
I-
I have one classmate who's Sonny Dunn, who was working the bakery with
Mhm.
his father, and he'd come in, work with his father, then go to school. Well, by the time we had our history class, poor guy was falling asleep. She rode him terrible. And then if the boys, back then, there was a number of the boys that would have to go work on the muck to plant,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I can't say skip school, but they wouldn't come to school
Sure.
because they had to go work on the muck. And she didn't like that either. But but she was a tough lady.
I can relate. I'm not going to get into details,
Remember?
but I know what you're saying.
Mhm.
How about Florence Fafaro?
She was the greatest. She was the best teacher ever. She communicated with the kids. You could go talk to her about anything, but she was a really communicator. And she remembered, she kept every yearbook. In fact, she gave them to the Alumni Association.
Oh, wow.
She was cleaning out, and she says, here, she says, I think you need this. But she'd keep track. If somebody got married, she'd mark it down in the book. Somebody passed away, she'd mark it down in the book.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. How about Pearl Bush?
Another tough one.
Mm.
She had that ruler that had the holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You remember the expression, cross it, move it up? She had an expression she used with us to teach us, I'm not sure what it was. It was
Yeah,
division or whatever.
yeah.
But I remember the expression like it was
Yeah.
yesterday. Just speaking of discipline, what was discipline like? Was there corporal punishment in your...
No, most generally you stayed after school.
Mhm.
Most generally you just stayed after school, like detention today.
Right, right.
Yeah.
How about school closings? On television?
Yeah. Mhm. When I lived on Center Street, it was one of real cold mornings. And we didn't know the school had closed, and my mother bundled me up, and I walked to Spencer Street School. School was closed. I turned around and come back home. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "School's closed." I was froze.
You mentioned walking to school.
Oh yeah.
Today it seems like everyone is transported on a bus, regardless of how close they live to...
Either transported by a bus or taken by the folks.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, parents transporting.
Either mom drops them off and dad picks them up, or vice versa. You know, you don't.
Were you ever transported on a bus to school?
Just that 1 year up to Southside. So
And after that's grade
You
school,
walked.
junior high, you walked.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you graduated in 1950. You were married in 1952.
Mhm.
Now that was common, right? A
Yep.
few years after graduation, people were married. Tell us about your husband, Lee Gustin. How did you meet?
At the soda fountain at Perrins, where I was working my last 2 years of high school, him and Bill Conley would come in. And that's how I met him,
Okay.
because he was 6 years older than I was.
Oh,
He'd been in the service.
okay.
He was home working. He was also taking care of his mom and dad and his younger sisters. Father
That-
was a diabetic, and
Oh, okay. But that was typical too. I think my
absolutely.
dad was 6 or 7 years older than my mother.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was common back then.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit about Lee, his brothers and sisters.
Yes. He had an older brother, Fred Gustin Jr.,
Mhm.
and then there was a brother, Richard, who drowned,
Mhm.
or it fell in the canal or whatever. He eventually had pneumonia,
Uh-huh.
and he passed away at
Mhm.
12. Then there was Shirley Post,
Mhm.
and then there was Beverly Dupree, and then my two other younger brother-in-laws, Roland Gustin Jr., Sr., and Alan. And Roland and Alan and Beverly are still alive.
Okay. And Lee was a tool maker, and there were a couple of buildings that you mentioned. He worked at Katie
Products before he went in the service.
and that building still stands,
Still
corner of
stands,
Barlow and Main.
Mhm.
And then he went to work for GE and actually worked for GE in Canastota. Where was that building located?
And where the Opportunity Shop is now, it was upstairs.
On Diamond and Center Street.
Mhm.
Okay. But he spent most of his years with GE in
Court Street and Electronics Parkway.
Okay, all right. Tell us a little bit about your current residence. 208 Lamb Ave. When was that built? How was it built?
We bought the lot from Mr. Lagusa, who owns 4 or 5 all those lots, open lots.
Mhm.
He had them all broken into lots for each one of his daughters. And as each one got married or left, nobody wanted the lot, so he sold them off. So we bought that first lot right next door to my mother and dad. And my father being a carpenter, and our good friend Maynard Keller, who was like an uncle to me,
Mhm.
we decided we would have liked to build. So we bought the lot, and then nights and weekends and whatever, we worked on that house for almost 2 years.
And when did you move in?
We moved in Halloween of 1954, just before Debbie was born. She was born in December, and we moved in the end of
Okay.
October.
And on the other side of the street, there are quite a few ranch homes. They were lots that Mr. Lagusa also owned?
No, that was Wilson. Lived at the old house over on the corner of
Oh, Peterborough and,
No, Maine, yeah.
Maine and,
he was kind of a recluse type fellow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
we always thought that house was haunted when
Yes,
we were kids.
yes. And he owned that land, and
Okay.
then he sold it off.
Maine and Maple,
Yes.
right, down the corner of
Yes.
Maine and Maple.
But DeCostes built there,
Oh, yeah.
Lucy and Benny DeCoste,
Yeah.
then Bob and Mary Lust, Eddie and Joe Cretero,
Mhm.
and where Dick and Cena live now, Joe Patney built that,
Okay,
and Terry and Carrie Quain lived there for a number of years.
okay.
And then where Bob Smith lives now, Lucy and Jimmy Costanzo
Right.
live there.
I still consider those to be new homes and
I know, and
they're
then
60s.
Tom and Justine Alejandro.
Oh, that's right, sure. You mentioned Barney Holdridge.
Yep.
He did what on
He did
that?
masonry work,
Okay.
and he and Lee went to school together, and when it come time to pour our cellar,
Mhm.
our foundation, we went to him, and he said, sure, he'd do it after work one night. And, we said, well, how much is it, He says, you pay for the material, just have your mom fix me a spaghetti dinner
So he was paid with a spaghetti dinner for his labor.
for his labor.
And I remember Barney because he excavated for most of those properties on West Lewis Street
Mhm.
when I was growing up.
So we paid for the concrete, and
with
he had a spaghetti dinner.
That's a good deal.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
You and Lee have 2 children.
2 children.
Tell us about your children.
Well, there's Deborah Lee. She works for MBT Bank.
Mhm.
She's going to be 62 come December.
Oh, she'll be glad that she's going to be.
Yeah.
elected.
And then I
I
have
didn't get her permission to say that.
and then there's Douglas Mark, he's 58. He's worked for the U.S. Postal Service for 32 years next month.
And Debbie's been with a number of banks.
She's been in banking business close to 35 years
Wow.
because she worked for Seneca Federal.
Right.
Then she went to Oneida Valley, then Alliance. I don't know.
And
went
BT,
BT.
and who's next?
I don't think she really cares.
And Doug's serving on the school board. He's been with the school board quite a few years now.
Yes, close on and off for the last 17 years.
Any grandchildren?
Yeah, 2 granddaughters. The oldest one, Cassandra Lee, is 25. She's a graduate of Syracuse University with a fine arts history
Very
major.
nice.
And then Jenna is 11, and she's in the 4th grade at Spencer Street School.
Very good, very good. For a moment, let's go back to your high school years. You mentioned as a young teen that you worked at a mom and pop store,
Yep.
grocery store.
Yep,
Which store would that be?
That would be Panabianco's store on the corner of Main and Lewis Street.
Mm-hmm.
We worked there the first 2 years of high school for 35 cents an hour.
Oh, wow.
I
Now,
worked-
mom and pop, who would the mom and who would the pop be?
Joe and Santa, Arlotta, Panabianco,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the daughter Nancy.
All right.
I worked after school from 3:30 to 6, and then I worked Saturday mornings. I used to help Joe make homemade sausage. But it was mom pops because that was the kids and everybody, you know.
Right, right.
And I remember the elderly Italian ladies that would come into the store, that she and Mrs. Panabianco would find a corner to sit or talk, all in Italian, so that Joyce couldn't understand.
Now, and that business was in their house
Oh, yes.
because there was a side porch. And I think the porch is gone now. But
Yep.
I can relate to Penny Bianco's because my grandmother would send me for groceries, maybe a quart of milk or whatever, and she'd always give me a nickel. And for a nickel, I could either get a candy bar. She always suggested I get a fudgesicle because she thought that was more nutritious than a popsicle. Or I could get 5 pieces of candy because there was penny candy back
Penny
then.
candy all the
Penny
time.
Not to be confused with Penny's Candy. There's a new store in town.
Yeah.
Penny Stevens has a candy store. But of course, candy was a penny then, but you mentioned you got how much an hour for working?
35 cents. an hour.
35 cents. So it's all relative, I guess. in
So when
terms-
I left there and I went to the drugstore, it was 50 cents an hour.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And you worked from 5 to 9:30 after you went to school all day.
Yeah, wow. You said you helped Mr. Pennybianco make sausage?
Yep.
It seemed like every mom and pop store had their own little recipe, you know, and people would argue who had the best homemade Italian sausage in Canastota. Everybody had their favorite. Penny Bianco's. My grandmother would send my grandfather, because it was a short walk, to get a loaf of bread, we'll say, and he'd no sooner get back home and, oh, I forgot something. And one afternoon I counted like 5 trips he made to Penny Bianco's.
I'm sure he and Joe would shoot the breeze too a little bit.
Yeah. But they were neighborhood stores. You know, people could walk. Or I remember riding my bike to these mom and pop stores. We're gonna have a little fun. I'm going to throw out some mom and pop stores that I remember, and give us the location. Okay, we'll start with, and it became a larger grocery store, but it started out as a mom and pop store. Cereals.
Yes,
Which street?
corner of Main and Canal Street.
You got it.
But
Denise. Pardon.
But before the mom and pop store there was a Cereals bar also on the corner.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They tore that down.
And there was a
that's
gas station too on that,
Yes.
that corner.
Yes.
Okay. How about Denise's?
Yep.
Where's Denise's?
Denise's is across the street from the Pines.
Mm-hmm. And now it's a I think a pawn shop, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Albanese's was across the street.
You took the name right out of my. How about Vecchio's?
Oh, I used to stop and get the penny candy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which street?
Canal Street.
Canal Street. Here's one. Here's a different street. Tornator and Farfalia.
Oh, that was over on Caroline Street.
Yep, you got it. Yeah, you're batting 1,000. How about B&T, Barney and Tripp?
That was over on Center Street.
Yep. And here's the toughest one. But you've lived here long enough. You know the answer to this one too. Cardner's.
That was over on Main Street between Dr. Farrar's and the Gardner home.
You got it. Can't trip you up. Now, there were a few larger grocery stores in Canastota.
Mm-hmm.
IGA, I remember, and A&P. A&P. And the fruit store was the Bettino family.
Bettino family.
And as a kid, I thought that was huge. But I look at those some of those buildings now, they were small compared with, Tops or certainly Wegmans.
My mother worked at the EMP store when it was on Peterborough Street,
Okay,
and she also worked on the one that was over behind the post office.
yeah. But of course, that was a different era. I mean, most families had one car, maybe none. And it was a one-car garage or no garage. People did most of their business locally. It was downtown or these mom and pop stores on the corner or whatever. You mentioned another job you held as a teenager, and that was at Perrin's. And Perrin's would be where the B-Man Candle Company is now. 115, 117 South Peterborough. I had to write the number down the other day. Describe Perrin's and what you did there.
I worked behind the soda fountain.
Okay. What's a soda fountain?
Soda fountain, they did lunches, which was during the day, but I worked after school. So it's just a matter of somebody who wanted the ice cream, cone, milkshake, sodas, whatever. And on Sundays, it was open in the afternoons. I want to say from 11 until 5. And we took turns. Only one girl worked then. That time. But there'd be people who would come in, and there was one particular family who would come in, and they only lived up the street. They'd come in and get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because we didn't do anything else, because they used to make egg salad and tuna fish and that type of stuff. But they'd sit there and have their milkshake and a peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they just lived up the street.
That had to be one of the few businesses open on a Sunday, because back in that day, everything was shut down downtown.
Yep.
You mentioned how much an hour did you get there?
50 cents.
50 cents. That was 15 cents more than Penny Bianco's. The thing I remember about Perrin's was I'd come out of the Avon Theater, and it was stifling hot inside the movie theater, and you'd walk down the street during the summertime and couldn't wait to get to Perrin's because they had air conditioning in there.
Yep.
And it was frigid. It was just like...
And remember, during the summer, they used to have a popcorn machine out in front of Perrin's?
I don't remember that. No, I do not remember the popcorn machine. I remember the cashews, the little paper envelopes they put cashews in.
There was 2 or 3 years that they had a popcorn machine out front and sold it before the movies, when they were going into the movies.
Who were some of the people that worked there when you were a teenager?
Leona Schuler Bonaventura. In fact, your Aunt Jenny.
And Jenny Brophy.
Yes.
Okay, she was probably Jenny LaJudas, maybe.
And, in fact, she got married while she was working there.
Okay.
And Barbara Orr, Tonitor.
Sure.
I think one of the Bears girls, I think maybe Dodo did, Josephine.
Okay.
But we were all, girls in high school, and a lot of my classmates.
The name I remember was Andy Adams. Was he the pharmacist?
He was a pharmacist.
Okay.
And then Bernie Law. And in fact, he's Debbie's godfather.
Okay.
We got very close while I was working there. Yeah.
Now, the other drugstore, same side of the street, we called it the corner drugstore, was Jack Wexler's. And similar, it was a drugstore, but also a soda fountain. And the thing I remember, my dad, if it wasn't payday or if he was running short on money, he had kind of a running account with Mr. Wexler. I mean, there was no credit card then. He would just mark down what was owed, and on payday, my dad would go in and pay whatever he could.
That's the way things were at Panabianco's, too. Because you had
they trusted their
your farmers, didn't do anything in the winter.
Right.
When they'd run tab and then pay it when the crops came in.
Wow, yeah. There also were some places that were not drugstores, but soda fountains, lunch counters, whatever. They were kind of teen hangouts, I guess, but other people frequent.
Chappies?
Chapman? Yeah, okay. Was it Chapman's?
They called it Chappies at the time. But
okay.
Doug Chapman's father ran it.
Okay. And then that became Emmy's? And then the Chatterbox?
Yeah, but then they moved, from there they moved down next to the bank.
Right.
Yep. Frosty and Tony.
Right. And then there was, on the other side of the street, closer to the tracks, was Beeman's. Not to be confused with the B-Man, but Beeman's was, I remember going in there to get boxing magazines or whatever. They had a magazine rack. After high school, where did you work first?
I got a job at Oneida Products, locally here.
Oneida Products. products did they produce?
Well, they worked in conjunction with, Night of Silversmith, that type of thing.
Night
Okay.
Limited and
Yeah.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Okay. And people always ask, Mitre Products and Henny Motors were in the same buildings, right? But
Yeah,
they were two
because-
different companies.
Yep,
And Henny Motors made the buses.
made the school buses.
When that business closed, a lot of people ended up going to Syracuse to work.
That's
right?
where they all ended up going to Carrier, GE,
Okay. Yeah.
because we had nothing.
Right. Joyce, take us through your years in local government. That's why we're sitting here right now. It's kind of appropriate because you spent many years in this building and in the previous building. When did you start? What were your jobs and what were your duties?
Well, I waited until Doug was in school full-time. So that was in 1963.
Mhm.
I got interviewed to work at the village clerk's office with Minnie Corona,
Okay.
and I got hired, and I worked full-time for 3 years.
Mhm.
And then I found it a little bit too difficult with home, family,
Mhm.
kids. So I stayed on for 6 years at part-time.
Okay. Who was the mayor?
See, I started out with Mike Becker,
Okay.
old Deputy,
Okay.
Joe Pione,
Mhm.
Ernie Emmy, Biff Serial.
Oh, wow. In fact,
And I'm not sure, but what, no, I wasn't, Mark Lavonis was on the board, but by that time I had resigned.
Right. This photo is the municipal building I remember as a kid. That
Mhm.
was on the corner of Diamond and Center. The building's still there.
Mhm.
It's, I think, Stoneleigh has their offices.
Yep,
And that was town and village
yep.
when you first
Plus,
started.
as you walked in the front, the door on Center Street,
Mhm.
to the left was the village offices, to the right was the town.
Okay,
And that was Fanny Cowan,
right.
was town clerk. And that's where Nina worked for us part-time, and then she went to work for Fanny in the town clerk's office, and that's how she ended up taking Fanny's place, Fanny Cowan's place as town clerk. So Nina retired as town clerk, and I
Okay.
retired as village clerk.
I think that's the building where my wife-to-be and I went for a marriage license.
Marriage license. Yeah.
And she mentioned the other day, did we have to have a blood test? Was there a blood test
Oh,
back
yeah.
in that day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no more. Also in this building, when the ambulance corps was formed,
Mhm.
you'd go down the hall and across, if you went straight, you went into the courtroom.
Mhm.
And if you went this way, you went to Mary Matina's office. She was the clerk for the town assessor's office.
Okay.
And there was a little room over here, and they set up a cot and whatever, so that your people that were on the ambulance corps and who were on duty during the night or during the day, they had a place to sleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I first started, yeah. Yeah.
And then in the late 70s, the building we're in, part of it was built in the late 70s, and then there was an addition made afterwards. So in this, and I'll show these to our videographer here in a second, but that was built in
See,
two parts.
This part was the one that was added on
Okay.
as we come in through
Okay.
here. Because as you walked in that front door,
Mhm.
again, left side was village, right side was town.
Right.
But for whatever reason, that was long after I was gone, they added this on, and this is where the town clerk is now.
Okay.
And in between here is your court clerks
Okay.
for the judges.
Now, the current village clerk, Kathy Williams, said she remembered as a kid it being a park because
Yep.
the old buildings had been raised by then. I'm older than Kathy Williams. I remember the pool hall. I remember
Weaver's Hotel.
Weaver's Hotel, Ethel's restaurant,
Mhm.
and those buildings were replaced by.
And Dick Carpenter had the
Oh, that's right. Sure, sure. Tommy Waldo had a bar there at one
Mud
time.
Romagnoli run that for years too.
Okay, okay, yeah, a lot of history in that, in this site right
Yeah,
here.
yep.
Yeah, but, yeah, these are the one at the top is the former municipal building till the late 70s, and then at the bottom, the current municipal building for the village and the town. You know, I failed to to show these pictures. This is the first house that Joyce and her family lived in on Lamb Ave. That's at 210.
Mhm.
This one right here,
Mhm.
210.
Mhm.
And this has been Joyce's home since 1954 at 208 Lamb Ave.
Now, let's see,
Or was it 53?
54.
54, okay. And then this is just a shot of the two homes side by side. Go over some of your duties as you were deputy clerk for a while, and then you were clerk and treasurer. What kinds of things does the clerk do?
Clerk. She's clerk to the board as for the minutes of the
Mhm.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and as treasurer, she's in charge of all the funds.
Mhm.
So we worked on budgets. And at
Like-
one time, we had a federal grant, and I ran that.
Mhm.
And at one time, I had state auditors and federal auditors all at the same time. And that was another thing with the auditors back then. Now they inform you that they're coming, but back then, state auditor, you knew you were going to get one at least once every 3 years.
Mhm.
And they didn't notify you they were coming, they just
Oh.
walked in.
Oh, well.
First thing they wanted to do was count your cash.
Mm.
It was in the draw.
Wow.
Yep. So you never knew when they were going to be coming.
Ooh.
But I was around long enough, I got to know most of them.
Sure, sure. So you over the years, you worked with Minnie Corona. You mentioned Betty Izzo,
She was my deputy.
Nina Maserati.
She was a clerk with us in the office.
You worked with Sina Clark?
Yes.
Okay.
She started working in the police department, and then when I retired, I recommended that they consider her for clerk treasurer. And then I stayed with her for maybe 6 months as anything she needed in the training, whatever.
And you worked with many mayors.
Yep.
You mentioned some of them.
Yep.
Over the years, there must have been some public meetings or hearings
Oh, yes.
that raised a
Oh,
few
yeah.
feathers.
Mhm.
You mentioned something about a woman who had to be restrained.
It had something to do with Canal Town, where the museum is
Mhm.
now.
Okay.
And she was a neighbor. And she did not like what they were intending to do. And we had a public hearing, and we were all here. And she got a little irritated. And she come up to the table where we were all sitting, and she grabbed one of the trustees by the shirt, popped all the buttons in his shirt. And I was sitting next to this individual that was standing there, and he just kind of went like this, and I said, "Oh, no." But her sister-in-law restrained her and got her back to her seat,
Okay.
and the meeting went on. Yeah.
Another memorable
Oh, yeah.
meeting that you referenced was with regard to the airport. Now, at one time, Canastota had a municipal airport.
Yes.
And what was that hearing all about, and how did that
Well,
shake down?
the village wanted to do some expansion
Mhm.
at the airport. And people up on the south side were not happy. And we had a public hearing. And that's one time I requested of the village board that I not take the minutes,
Mhm.
that they hire somebody to come in and do it on their machine,
Mhm.
And I had one individual come bring his machine in to the meeting, and I said, "You don't have to do that, I already hired one." But there were so many people, we had to move down to the high school,
Oh.
and it was rather,
About what year was that? Hasn't been an
probably
airport for a while.
80, probably 86,
86, okay.
because all the people up on Stroud Street and Bellevue Drive
Mhm.
and Hickory and Pleasant
Right,
didn't want the air traffic
right.
coming over their houses.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But at the time, the airport was used for individuals who had airplanes
Mhm.
and we rented the hangars to them. There was hangars up there,
Right.
and we rented it out to them. And I think the people just didn't want more traffic up there, and it fell through.
Do you remember when Johnny Carson flew into the airport?
Nope.
That's a little known tidbit that I mentioned to Gary DeGeorge, and he had never heard that story before. But Johnny Carson had a pilot's license and had his own plane. He was, starring on the Tonight Show, and for some reason he landed in Canastota and walked over to it was called the Airport Lounge now, and now it's the expanded Rusty Rail. But he had lunch in Canastota. There were a number of people that were there that can verify it. In fact, they put a little piece in the Bee Journal, and I'm going crazy trying to find the article, but it's somewhere in the archives.
In fact, my mother saw Amelia Earhart up at the airport.
Oh wow, that was 1928.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm. She's got
Wow.
So she got to see her. She didn't get to meet her, but she got to see her.
Sure. Yeah. You also worked for the town of Lenox. What did you do with them, and who was the supervisor?
Rocky DeVrel.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
His secretary had cancer, was having treatment, and I offered to go in and help, which I did for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got real sick and passed away, so they hired a town clerk or a deputy.
And you're still serving as a kind of a bookkeeper for the town of?
They call me the supervisor secretary.
Secretary, okay.
Yep.
Town of Lincoln.
Yep.
Which is, for those that aren't familiar, it's south of Canastota. But you said you're not a computer person.
Not a computer person.
So this is hand entry kind of stuff?
This is all hand entry, yeah.
Okay. Who are some of the supervisors you've worked with in Lincoln?
Larry Carpenter.
Okay. Who's now administrator here in the village?
Mm-hmm. Well, he approached Rocky, who was looking for somebody to. His wife was doing part of the work, and they asked if there was somebody, and he says, he asked me, he says, you want to talk to him? So I worked out of my house for a number of years, but that I did not like. So when the Coleridge took over as supervisor, I told him, I said, I want to have an office up here.
Right.
So I'm at the town hall. And then I had worked for Darren Ball.
He's a supervisor now?
He's a current supervisor, yes.
Mm-hmm. And you continue as the election inspector, and you go throughout the county?
I can work any place in Madison County. Mm-hmm. When they asked if I would work in any other district, I said, I don't mind, but just don't send me to Morrisville or whatever, because you're all in the same county. Yeah. So I have worked in Oneida, and now I work locally here in my own district.
Very good.
It's going to be busy this year.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Joyce, you and your husband devoted many years of service to the Canastota Fire Department. You mentioned Lee served about 30 years, some of those years as chief. And in fact, he's listed on that deceased fireman's monument that's in the park over by New Boston and Main Street. And you were a member of the Firemen's Auxiliary for how many years?
25.
Does that exist anymore, the auxiliary?
No.
Give us an idea of what the ladies of the auxiliary did.
Well, we used to put on annual dinners because there was 3 separate fire departments.
Right.
There was the Forbes Hose Company, the Delano Hose, and there was the Patent Hook and Ladder Company.
Right.
That is all combined into one Canastota Fire Department now. But they used to have annual dinners. One would be in January, one would be in February, one would be in March. So the ladies auxiliary did the cooking and serving of those dinners.
Right.
And if there was a fire, bad fire, we would go to the Canastota Fruit Company and get cold cuts, make sandwiches, coffee, donuts, take it to the fire and serve them.
So you're kind of like the Red Cross in some ways.
Yeah, we'd serve. And there were sometimes that there was some bad fires in the winter.
Downtown, I remember vaguely some of the...
We take coffee and donuts out to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. I've heard people mention Fire Queensboro. I don't know what year that was, but...
Lee was fire chief at the time, and Joseph Tonatar, that lives out on Canal Street, was assistant. And they both worked at GE, but Joe was at Electronics Parkway, and Lee was at Court Street. So my husband always said to me, if there's a bad fire, you've got to call me. And I says, why? What are you going to do? He says, I'll come home. I says, how are you going to do that? So he and Joe made a little thing. So when they had Queensboro fire, I called him. I said, you got a bad fire. He says, we'll be there. So Joe left GE Parkway, stopped on the thruway, picked up Lee. He went out the back door over to the thruway and picked him up on the thruway, and they came home.
So they left their regular
left their
employment
jobs.
in Onondaga County to come
Yes.
back home to.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we used to march all summer long, field days.
Oh, okay. Field days. Tell us about the field days because they are no more.
They are no more. There's, I think, Bridgeport and East Syracuse, Manoa
Mm-hmm.
have field days. But no, it got to be a problem with insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They built a pole barn,
Right.
but with the alcohol problem,
Mm-hmm.
with people drinking on the field and then leaving,
Right.
the insurance was astronomical, and they decided that just couldn't do it anymore.
Kind of a carnival atmosphere. Right? They had
Oh, yeah.
rides and they had
Oh, yeah.
games,
Yep.
and it was a big fundraiser.
Yes.
I mean, as a
Yes.
kid, we always look forward to
Yeah.
the field days, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden
We
they.
used to travel all over all summer long,
Mm-hmm.
go to state conventions.
Sure. Now, do you still get together with some of the folks that were?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, Cena and a whole bunch of us
Sure.
from the Auxiliary members,
Sure.
we get together.
Yeah.
And once a year, they have a past chief's dinner.
Mhm.
And so us widows are always invited.
Oh, nice.
So that's very nice. We get together with the current guys. And
Yeah.
we
Very good.
still got some chiefs,
Yeah.
like Tony Tonator.
Well, that's right.
TJ's
sure.
dad.
Sure.
He's
Yeah.
86 or 87.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
still around. So we get to chit-chat.
Yeah. Very
Enjoy.
nice. Another facet of your life of service to the community involves the Canastota High School Alumni Association.
Mhm.
When did you get involved with that, and what
Back
kinds
in-
of things do you do?
Back in 1999, when they were planning the 2000 3-day.
Oh, that's right, the big, yeah.
That also was my 50th class
Mhm.
reunion
Mhm.
weekend. But I'm in charge of reservations and historian
Mhm.
for the Alumni Association.
When I was in school, the Alumni Association, I was associated with Ronnie Reed.
Mhm.
Today, your name comes to mind, and Mary Ann Mangusi. Who are some of the other people that are involved with the
Virginia Martin,
Mm-hmm.
Mary Frazina,
Mm-hmm.
Lynn Honert.
Okay.
There's 19 of us. Liz Garofalo, my son Doug, Peachy Stagnitti, Linda Gleason, Charveris, Marion Serio.
Nice.
We non-profit, so we
Mhm.
had to go, we have board of directors, but there's 19 of us.
My 50th was last year, so that was, I hate to admit this, but it was the first time I'd been back to an alumni banquet in a long time. It was a good time. Yeah,
Yes, it was.
I'm glad I went. A question regarding the Alumni Association. Is there a place where all of the yearbooks are in place?
We have them at school,
Mm-hmm.
and also the library has a
Mhm.
complete.
Right, I've used some of theirs.
Yeah.
In,
Mhm.
in the education center, we have some that have been donated, but it's kind of hit and miss. In fact, that's where this one came from. I got to.
In fact,
Return it.
we had at the wellness thing over to school.
Right.
We had a table, and we had the school class book from
Mhm.
1929
Oh wow.
that I found over to school.
Yeah. And they've changed dramatically over the years. I mean, they've
Mhm.
gone from soft cover to hard cover, and the color photography, and
Expensive too.
yeah, they are expensive.
We used to pay $5 for ours.
I
Now they're-
think
now
mine
they're-
might have been
now
10.
they're
I could-
45.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the class rings too.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Do they
thought-
still do class windows? I mean, we used to have like a stained glass window.
Oh, yes.
Those are still
Oh, yeah,
still
those are
made each
still
year.
at the entrance to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're
Right.
still up there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, for the record, I'd like to acknowledge several awards that you've received. In 2000, as you said, it was your 50th class reunion year. You were the recipient of the Alumni Achievement Award. In 1999, the Canastota Area Churches Award. In 1981, the Zonta Club Award. And more recently, in 2012, the Roses for the Living. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved. Joyce Keville Gustin, 83 years young, still serving her alma mater and community. I want to thank you for sharing your stories with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.